G'day, how are we all? Quick bit of housekeeping, even though it's repeated from the last Next Fest video that I did. Any complaints about balancing, performance, or anything similar that I do should be taken with a grain of salt because the nature of a demo is that it is supposed to be subject to change. Ignoring that wouldn't be honest on my part though, so any sort of feedback in that regard should always be expressed. That way we get the best possible version of the games that we're playing. Righto, let's get into it with the first game I played being 4x4 in a furniture store. 4x4 off-road physics-based precision driving in a mini open-world mega furniture store. Genuinely my most hyped game here. One of the devs previously worked on some game where you drive rally cars through circuits built in parking garages or something. Here, you will take customers through a store to complete little challenges like them wanting to test the sturdiness of different furniture, or trying to topple over chairs in various spots. Sitting in low gear changes the controls to where you're spinning the stick in a circle like you would an actual steering wheel, and that was odd at first, but getting used to it is quick. The physics system is really fun. I didn't have any dramas with it at any point, but hopefully more difficulty comes about later as the few challenges you do in the demo are pretty easy to knock over. To be fair, it seems to be the start of the game, so naturally they would be easier. Overall, the game presents really great charm, it's fun, it's a goofy idea. I am very keen for the full release. RUNT, a rural gothic visual novel mystery where you play as the youngest of 5 brothers surviving a monstrous post-apocalypse. Choices must be made not only with what you say to people, but also which brother you patrol with and what activities you do as you try to figure out what is going on with an ominous message left in your church. Replayability is advertised as a key feature with only 5 days given to solve this mystery and over a dozen different endings. I actually had to force myself to stop playing because it just really sucked me in and I didn't want to put it down, but I do want to actually sit down and experience the full thing when it releases. The world is interesting, the dialogue so far is really compelling, and tension is sold perfectly, especially with the eldest, possibly even most unhinged brother, with great use of music. I really love the art too. It's dark, creepy, and it keeps your imagination going with what might be in this world. Awesome title, can't wait for it. Object Impermanence, a puzzle game where objects exist only when being looked at. It's such a cute little game that I can see getting the brain working for sure. Only 2 different orb-type creatures are used in the demo, and they're used to put down on sections that open up doors and work elevators for you and such. One of them disappears and reappears where it was last seen as you look back, and the second creature will return to its original spawn when you've looked away. The general vibe was great with the nice music and low tempo feel to the game. I really recommend this one even for those with only a passing interest in puzzle games. Onimusha, Way of the Sword, the latest entry in a long-running hack-and-slash franchise from Capcom. Pretty poor showing with this demo, to be honest, mostly because of how stupidly easy it is. Surely the full game will be more engaging, or at least I hope that's the case, because here, mechanics are introduced for enemies that are so passive, I think it's going to have people double-checking they haven't accidentally selected the easiest difficulty. Like, for example, why wait 10 seconds for an enemy to finally swing at you when you're completely surrounded so you can learn to parry or perfect dodge, when you can just spam attack and have each enemy dead within about a second or two of engaging with them. The boss you fight is very easy as well, almost like the tools at your disposal are too aggressive for this AI Capcom have designed. I feel like this is going to be one of those games where the proper difficulty doesn't actually unlock until you've completed the game once or twice, and I've never really liked that sort of thing, to be honest. And I'm only a casual when it comes to the hack and slash genre, which is the genre where it always seems to happen. I can't imagine how frustrating it would be for any veterans that want to get in there, really dig into the gameplay systems, and they're just presented with the most bare bones, boring string of combat imaginable. Other than those complaints though, I really liked the animation work, it looks nice and it ran pretty well. I'm playing Gothic Remake at the moment, so it's nice to take a break from Unreal Engine 5 and its really piss poor performance and play something that feels way more optimized. Security 51. Papers please, but you're a security guard at Area 51. It was pretty straightforward and easy. I feel like Papers Please starts doing little things to throw you off pretty early, whereas this game didn't really put in much of a challenge. Anomalies show themselves clearly, names are super easy to cross-reference, instructions are simple. It's only a demo of course, so I can't judge it too harshly for that. The music is a bit overwhelming and loud by default. I didn't get a sense that I would enjoy playing this game long term, but Papers, Please I'd recommend in a heartbeat, so don't take my reaction as the game not being worth your time, it might just be a me issue. Duskfade, an action platformer where the protagonist Zirian sets out on a journey to rescue his sister. Very reminiscent of a game from the PS2 era, and to be honest, a borderline Kingdom Hearts ripoff. There's being inspired by something, but when movesets, weapons, and even some music comes across as a straight up copy of an already existing game, it just becomes very distracting. It does control well, it looks really nice, I just don't think I'm the target audience. I think this would be great for much younger players because the dialogue and voice acting is extremely cringy, which goes in line with this trying to emulate Kingdom Hearts as much as possible.
Robot Bird, could you,
Don't call me that!
Sorry. So, what is it?
I'm not sure. If Alira did build me, she didn't bother with a name.
I used to have a pet bird. Sir Feathers. Maybe...
I'm no one's pet. You can call me Cuckoo for now.
Great. Could you lend me a hand, Cuckoo?
I don't know. Let's go to that tower for now, I guess.
There's not much in the combat system as far as the demo goes either. You have a 3-hit combo and can dodge roll. I don't know if much will change in the full game, but first impressions aren't all that great for now. One to keep an eye on if you're into these sorts of games or have a kid who you're trying to introduce to some action platformers. The Mound, Omen of Cthulhu. A co-op game about exploring a cursed jungle for treasures. Your perception of what is real is challenged as sanity effects keep you on your toes. I was interested due to the co-op aspect, and still am, but it plays a little rougher than I would have liked. Movement feels stiff and quite slow, melee combat is clunky, and the distance of weapons seem much shorter than they should be. There's no blocking or dodging, so some enemies are completely unavoidable when it comes to grab attacks. I sort of worried that the only draw of this game will be some funny moments between friends as you all get affected by random sanity events. I think once a few of those have been experienced, the rest of the game will feel too clunky and boring to want to play long term. Edge of Memories, an action JRPG about saving the world from an infliction called the Corrosion. The real-time hack-and-slash combat didn't do much to sell me on the game, just because it's very limited. It controls well though, and was responsive with the dodging and such. It's a very nice looking game with vibrant colours, and has a beautiful soundtrack. I think if I'm going to track the release of this game, it will actually be for the full soundtrack more than anything. I think the setup of the story is interesting enough, and the voice acting for the two main characters in the demo was quite good. These are the same devs that did Edge of Eternity 2, which is set in the same world. I think the studio is relatively small, so it's always exciting to see something even a little bit interesting getting made by not many people. Forgotten Blood, a first-person action RPG inspired by Kingsfield and the Soul series. I was drawn to it because Queen's Domain also draws similar inspiration, and I thought that game was really cool and interesting. Unfortunately, I can't really say the same here. It just feels too much like an early build, like a proof of concept almost. The sounds are jarring, the jumping seemed to just stop working for me sometimes. The menus and general user interface look more like placeholders. Inventory controls were not clear at all, but that just might be due to limited controller functionality, so I'll take the L on that for not using mouse and keyboard. The visuals are a little rough, and finally the combat, it was kind of boring from the little amount that I did. It was just hitting an enemy once, walking backwards to avoid their attack, and then just repeat that over and over. Showrunners, a fast-paced speedrunning platformer. The game looks better than it plays due to very touchy controls that kind of reminded me of the weightless way Geralt originally controlled in The Witcher 3, and there's also this tendency to be thrown into the air with super low gravity, and it just makes building any sense of proper speed almost impossible. I could never figure out what was sometimes causing me to just lose all my speed mid-air too. Even wall running didn't always work. It could totally be fixed though, and I hope the final version is improved greatly. Static Dread, the Submarine. Descend into Lovecraftian horror aboard a military submarine. Assign tasks, analyze sonar signals, and make decisions as you try to keep your crew sane. I really like the premise and am interested in the full release. I don't know if there's a fail state that results in a simple game over, or if you can just keep struggling to an ending, but with potentially less crew available to help. I hope it's a case of the latter. Horror does hit me pretty easily, so the tension was definitely there in a few moments. I think the voice acting not matching the written dialogue is kind of distracting though. It's not like it's slightly different either, which I could handle. It is just nowhere near what people are actually saying out loud. Cool game, I recommend checking it out. About Fishing, a psychological detective fishing game. There's this surreal Lynchian aspect to the world and writing that also reminds me of Arctic Eggs. I think taking the time to check this out is going to be the best approach because I don't think I can sufficiently sell it. It's odd, it's different, it's really intriguing. This is the kind of thing I just love seeing indie and small studios do with their creativity. Parking in tight spaces. I think just the name should do enough to tell you what the go is here. I really liked it. I think I played something similar on mobile many years ago called Parking Mania. There's this cozy vibe to the game with its lo-fi soundtrack, and I really enjoyed the few levels the demo gives you. The inclusion of a damn leaderboard is going to do wonders at making me frustrated as I try to achieve better times. Really cool game that people should check out. We Need More Humans, an incremental game about abducting humans with your UFO. These aren't really my kind of games, but I can see how someone can become a fan because after feeling pretty meh about it, I couldn't help but keep playing just to see those numbers go up higher. It seems to activate something in my reptilian brain. I think something I didn't really like is that upgrades are very linear. You're not really tossing up many choices. I think there's potential to weigh up if you want a more relaxed playstyle that goes on for longer by way of bigger beams, or spend more money towards the humans being worth more, but having a much more narrow beam and thus needing more attention on your part, but you get more money in the process. I don't know, a couple of ideas. Maybe check this out if incremental games are your thing. Someone that plays them more often would probably know why this does or doesn't work as a game. KINT, a text-based fantasy multiplayer RPG where all players must decide what lore is true. You navigate through a fantasy world, meet people, travel to many places, and each week you use points to vote on what lore regarding the things you encounter becomes canon in this universe. Through democratic voting, the players collectively build the truth of this world and the people and nature in it. The concept is interesting, but definitely sounds like something you get a lot out of if you're fully invested in the world and want to actively participate in building it. I wasn't grabbed by it as much, but I think that's a me issue and not indicative of the world and writing being uninterested. You should just give it a look. Worlds Upon the Wind, a peaceful roguelite deck builder where you use cards to build different parts of different settlements with the goal of fulfilling the collection of specific resources each round. Permanent stats are purchased to help succeed more in each run, and special cards can be gained all against some really pretty classical Japanese art and music using genuine Japanese instruments. I don't think the game is really for me, but I wanted to highlight it just for the artistic work alone. Hopefully this is up someone's alley. If not, just appreciate the art and the music with me. Hull Rupture, a roguelite tower defense where you build modules on your ship and collect a bunch of different resources to build all sorts of turrets and resource generating rooms. Random events, shipyards to change your layout, and more can be found as you're traveling through space in a game that's apparently reminiscent of FTL. I haven't played that game, so I can't speak to how they compare. If you're not careful with your upgrades in this game, it can fall apart pretty quickly, but that's usually the appeal with roguelites because it makes jumping back in to try again more enticing. Very cool game. I love the art style here, and learning it was actually very quick, even though at a glance it seemed like a lot to take in. There does seem to be specific resource rooms that it kind of wants you to build first and foremost though, that's going to give you a really good head start. So I hope the full release doesn't require you to only build a specific sort of layout each time in order to succeed. Whatever it takes. A hardcore first-person action RPG in a dark fantasy setting, very reminiscent of how Dark Messiah plays. Unfortunately, it does not feel good to play at all. Movement has this clunky feel to it, like it was made from Arthur's walking in tight spaces in Red Dead 3. Combat is weird. You can be tactical with your swinging and picking where to hit the enemy, but locking onto them feels like a more unintuitive version of Kingdom Come Deliverance's combat, whereas it feels better to just not lock on and simply swing at enemies whilst stepping backwards every now and then. Sometimes stepping out of the way wasn't even necessary, the AI just stops. The input for the controls is not good. R plus G is shield bash, even though it's not a bash, I think it's just the actual block button. You have to hold right click and swing your mouse around to do the directional attacks. Realistically, I would change the controls around to something that feels better, but between the game feeling quite awful to play and the frame rate being really bad, I just did not want to spend more time on this. It's a shame because Dark Messiah inspired combat sounds awesome, and I never want a game to not be entertaining. I really liked the music though, something about strings just really gets me. Mistfall Hunter, an extraction action RPG with NPC enemies to fight as well as other players in a dark fantasy setting. An extraction PvP style game isn't really my cup of tea, but I wanted to go into this with an open mind to see what it's about, and I was also drawn to it because they do have various bosses and everything scattered throughout. It's not just simple NPCs. I really hope full release shows some improvements because the FPS stuttering I experienced is possibly the worst I've ever had in a game. I have played games where I've turned on full ray tracing at native resolution just because I was curious about the performance hit it was going to give me, and even then I had a more consistent frame rate than this game. I updated my drivers just in case, even though updating drivers has never once brought about improvements in any game I've ever played. If anything, it's actually done the opposite multiple times, and even with the update, the issues were still there. I wasn't a fan of its combat style either. Attack swings are aimed with your camera similar to God of War 2018. I think there's a lack of magnetism though, so it's really easy to miss swings, which leads to combat feeling a bit annoying. It sort of necessitates using mouse and keyboard, even though for third-person hack and slash games, I tend to use a controller for them that usually feels more comfortable for me. Sometimes I had an enemy centered or as centered as I thought they were, but some attacks kind of just swing to the side. No lock-on exists as far as the demo goes, which is something I think could help make the combat feel better. For the melee combat at least, I think any ranged or spellcasting abilities should remain tied to manual aiming. I only fought one player, and even then they could have been a bot, I'm not really sure. With how bad the performance was, there was no fucking way I was loading into more than one match to delve further into the combat system, gearing and leveling, or look for any bosses. For a better rundown of the game, you're better off watching Iron Pineapple's video when he played it. I'll link that one below, and for him it seemed to actually run pretty well, so not sure what happened with this build. And the final game was Wordforge Silent Letters, a world-building dungeon game where you're trying to dungeon crawl to the exit by way of making words. You have to think carefully about the words you're making and where you're placing them, as it's easy to leave yourself with nothing to build off of. Some items can help when fighting enemies, as well as unlock extra rooms to fit letters into. It's a cool idea, but there was something off about the art design. There's this weird blurriness to the background, and the assets almost look like they're from a completely different game, but photoshopped in poorly. And for some reason, moving the camera around the board is not a smooth process. Despite this, only being a Scrabble board with super minimal animations overall, the frame rate was dropping a lot when I would move the camera around. And that is everything I played for this Steam Next Fest. I love going out of my way and finding as many different games as I can because there's just so many interesting things always being made, and demos are just the absolute most perfect way to get a quick idea if something's going to be up your alley. I usually try to stick with things that look interesting at a glance as well. I don't usually go out of my way to only played demos of the most highly anticipated games. So I hope you enjoyed that, and if you have any suggestions of your own that I should check out, please let me know. And until the next video, have a good one.